Hi everyone, we're going to get started. Okay. Hello folks, I hope that your 2017 is off to a great start. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on publisher activation campaigns. I cannot overstate the importance of today's topic. Virtually all successful programs at CJ run these campaigns on a regular basis. A couple of quick introductions before we get going. I'm Ryan LeBay and I oversee the non-managed DIY accounts here at CJ. I've been with the company for a year now, and a major initiative of ours is to increase learning opportunities for advertisers. Excuse me. Bryan Cardillo is our presenter today. The only thing that may surpass Bryan's affiliate knowledge is his general enthusiasm, as you'll find out shortly. Since he's managed or assisted on close to 75 activation campaigns, we're grateful to have him here with us today. Before I turn it over to Bryan, let's speak for a moment about the webinar format. Bryan will be presenting for about 45 minutes, and then we should have time for questions. Besides the presenter, all attendees will be muted. As you have them, you can send your questions to me in the GoToWebinar software, and I'll get them to Bryan for Q&A at the end of the session. If we don't get to your question, or if it is account specific, we'll get back to you directly after the session. There'll be a post-webinar survey that should be launched within the GoToWebinar interface. We would be grateful for your feedback. It shouldn't take you more than a couple of minutes to complete. Finally, we're recording this, and we'll let you know how to access this in a follow-up communication. So, without further ado, here's Bryan.
Thank you, Ryan. I am so excited to be talking with you today on the subject of activation campaigns. This is one of my favorite parts of affiliate strategy, as it really uncovers how powerful this marketing channel is for any given brand. I can seriously nerd out about this one, so I'm psyched you're all here for joining me about it today. Before we begin, let's take a look at today's agenda. First, we're going to break down what activation campaigns are. It's possible you're on the line today because you've never heard that term, or it might be fuzzy at best. And if that's the case, get pumped, because in 45 minutes or less, you're going to be a bona fide expert. Next, I'll talk through how they work and what specific steps should be taken to ensure effectiveness. No doubt you'll immediately start thinking about your own program and how you can apply what you learned today to address your own needs and goals. So that's why, third, we're going to build a campaign together from scratch. I'm really excited about this part, guys. It's a great opportunity to see something in action right in front of your eyes. And to close, I'll answer some FAQs as well as take additional questions, just like Ryan said, that you've submitted for me to go through today on our call. So without further ado, let's get moving. A little more about me, just to get things started. I have been here at CJ for over 5 years now. I got started in our wonderful Westboro office just outside of Boston. That's an example of my first commute. And much more recently moved out here to our sunny Santa Barbara headquarters in September, and yeah, it's a little different now. And on the side, I am a musician, actor, and writer, and I'm pretty sure I'm 16 in this photo, so that's a thing. Enough about me, let's talk about activation campaigns. What is an activation campaign? Before we get to the actual definition, I have some questions for you to ask yourselves to get our thoughts to the right starting point. So, first, how many publishers do you work with in CJ? Got at least a ballpark in your head? Okay. Next, what do you know about them? I'm sure you know things like their main websites, maybe the kind of content they create, and maybe some of the ways they promote your brand's offers or products. Now, how many of them are driving you conversions, sales or leads, this month, or the last 3 months? Out of all your joined publishers, what percentage are driving you sales or leads? While you think about that a bit, how well do you communicate with them? And how would you go about that? Do you send newsletters, one-off emails? Do you have calls with them? We've covered how well you know them, but how well do they know you and everything you have going on? These are great check-in questions, which can offer you a quick diagnostic of how well activated your publisher base is. In an ideal world, here's what your answers might look like. For how many publishers, there's no magic number of how many publishers, but building a wide variety of publisher relationships focused on varying promotional methods and business models is the name of the game. As long as that's being met, the more the merrier. In terms of what you know about them, you should know their main sites, promotional methods, content focus, and general audience, at least at a high level, for each publisher relationship. How many are driving conversions? Well, as many as possible. There's no standard, but honestly, anything less than 100% means you can get even more engaged and effective. And how you communicate with them should be that you communicate on a regular cadence. Your publishers know everything they can know, which can help them promote your products and offers. The goal of an activation campaign and of incorporating activation into long-term strategy is to help you get as close as possible to answers like these. All right, it's finally time for that definition. Activation campaigns are targeted outreach efforts made to reinvigorate your publisher base. Often they use incentives to reward publishers who successfully start performing again, such as higher commission rates or flat bonuses. And when you're running an activation campaign, you get to know your publishers better and you're building more quality relationships to drive new growth. So what does that actually mean? What can they do for you? They can ensure your brand story is told. They can keep your offers refreshed and accurate. They can help you grow your share of voice, especially on sites where your competitors have a strong footprint. And they engage your publishers in your program's opportunities and seasons, and ultimately help you drive new growth, meaning growth from entirely new players. I can't stress it enough. If you're thinking that this might be something you don't need to do, that's only meant for struggling programs, I assure you it's not. Successful programs run activation campaigns. Day in and day out, our most engaged and successful advertisers incorporate activation into their key strategies to accomplish all the things they do in a scalable and effective way. All right, you ready? Let's do this. How do activation campaigns actually work? What steps should you take to accomplish these goals? We break it down into 3 steps: group, offer, and connect. First, let's look at the group step, which is really about getting to know your publishers. There's a simple formula here I'm going to fill in shortly. First, take your program and divide it into specific groups. Grouping will allow you to offer specific goals and incentives to specific verticals or tiers of publishers and makes your campaigns smarter and more effective. Remember, the goal is to motivate publishers who have become disengaged. If you were in their shoes, wouldn't you want the advertiser to show that they understand who you are, what your time and efforts are worth? To do this effectively, it's good to group your publishers by a combination of performance factors as well as their promotional methods and vertical to arrive at well-constructed and specific audiences of publishers. Let's break this down a little bit. First, you've got your publishers that drive you steady clicks and conversions. Their conversion rates look good, they grow during your peak seasonality and sale periods. These are not publishers that you need to worry about today. Next, you've got your low-performing but still active publishers. These are your low-hanging fruit, so to speak, and hopefully can get more going on fairly easily. Finally, you've got your inactive publishers with no sales or leads at all. That said, are they still driving you clicks on a consistent basis? This could be a sign that they've got outdated offers or have your links in places that aren't a good fit for you. Now that you've analyzed performance tiers, consider the promotional methods and business models your publishers focus on. Breaking down your publishers into groups like content, loyalty, coupon deal helps you understand who they are and how you can offer them each unique value. A loyalty publisher is going to be focused on their commission rate, since it plays into what they give back to the shopper. But a content publisher may respond best to flat bonuses, since that likely will be more profitable for them. Beyond how they promote you, you may find that your publishers focus on differing parts of what your brand brings to the table. For example, if you're a consumer electronics brand, you might have some publishers talking about your laptop and peripherals deals, while others focus entirely on sound equipment and speakers. You can highlight the products and offers that mean the most to each of them. If you can do that, you're speaking their language and making an instant connection with your outreach. Combining these 2 sides of segmentation can help you arrive at a handful of unique groups. You'll use these groups to target the offers and communications you'll be providing as part of the activation campaign. The goal of the group step is to determine who you most need to get activated and to segment and to segment that group in ways that offer them each the best value of becoming active. Here are a few examples just to give you an idea of what you might end up with. And again, this isn't random. These groups should be defined and chosen very intentionally based on your own program's needs and focus. Additionally, keep in mind that as you'll be setting up these groups, you'll be preparing custom reporting for each of them. By having these groups, you can do that with our interface. Okay, that's the first step of activation campaigns. So let's move on to step 2, offer. You want to make publishers' efforts to activate worthwhile, and this can be in the form of special offers and promotional codes, as well as monetary incentives, and we'll get to that. But first, you should always consider just reintroducing the offers and tools your program already has to offer. Especially for an inactive group or new publishers that haven't even posted links yet, there's no need to start offering higher commissions and bonuses right away. This is a new day one for them. And remember that if they joined the program at one point, for some reason, whether you pushed an offer and they accepted, or they applied and you accepted, they agreed with you that a successful relationship was possible. Remind them of that by highlighting current offers, top-performing products, and features like a product catalog. For publishers performing at a low level, these reminders can be helpful as well, but adding a monetary incentive is what's going to really get them going. Why? Because no matter what efforts each publisher is using to grow their performance with you, offering bonuses says that you value their efforts and shows you're willing to invest in their success. Using the CJ Account Manager's tools, you can even automate a lot of this, and we'll cover how exactly to set that up a little later. Note, it's a best practice to ask for an opt-in to qualify for a reward. This is a good way to establish communication with each publisher and helps to ensure you're rewarding their renewed efforts and not just an unintentional spike which may be short-lived. At this point, you've got your group set up and now you've defined specific ways you can offer them value. It's time to roll out the campaign, and you'll do that with step 3, connect. Communication is what you'll need to make all of these plans a reality. These publishers are marketers and entrepreneurs, each looking to build her or his place in the industry. Making it clear that you know at least a little bit about who they are will drive a real difference. And you can do so by simply treating each group's communication a little differently. If you're offering unique things to each performance tier, this is the step where you'll draft those up separately. If you've got vertical specific publishers, speak to that audience with the products you focus on, the words you use, and the offers you mention. And if you've got groups based off promotional method, definitely consider ways to customize here as well. For instance, if you've got content publishers in the mix, fight the urge to mail merge. Sending a unique note to each blogger shows that you know their stuff and that you want to do more, and it'll go a lot further than a mass message template. Shameless plug here. If you'd like to learn more about working with bloggers, influencers, and our massive content publisher network and everything it has to offer, please check out our last webinar hosted by our very own in-house blogging expert, Jessica Woodbury. We'll provide a link after today's webinar so you can easily access it. Once all your communications are prepared and ready, roll them out in advance of the start of your campaign to give your publishers time to ask questions and to opt in. That's it. Group, offer, connect, and you're off to the races. Now you've got a plan to keep your publishers motivated. And I can't stress it enough. Don't push these out too fast and cut corners in the interest of urgency. I totally get that time is money, and you likely have plenty of reasons to need more growth as soon as you can make it happen. But putting in the effort up front takes your campaign from driving meager results to years of returns. Again, I say again, successful affiliate programs use activation campaigns. Our top programs in the network never let activation fall off their strategy's priorities. So, to summarize our progress today, we've covered what activation campaigns are and how you run them effectively, and I think that's pretty darn impressive. In the 20 minutes, you may have gone from a relative beginner to an expert on this topic. So, now it's time to get our hands dirty. There's no better teacher than first-hand experience. So come along with me as we build a campaign from scratch. Quick disclaimer, My walkthrough will include and assume the use of Microsoft Excel, and screenshots and examples will be driven from a Windows 7 device. If you'd like to follow along, I absolutely encourage you to, especially through the CJ Account Manager related steps and examples, so you can get a feel for where things are and how they work. Let's take a quick look at our roadmap. Each of our 3 steps does involve a few minor sub-steps, so we'll be checking out each of those as we go along. We'll be walking through, for instance, under the group step, building publisher lists, and then adding those lists of publishers to the groups you've built. For the offer step, we're going to talk about how to build and use incentives into your program terms, as well as how to create links that are exclusive to a group of publishers or one publisher. And in the connect step, we'll be talking through how to send email campaigns through the interface, and then we'll talk a little bit about timing, maybe how long your campaign should be, as well as some of the details of replacing a program term and how you should best go about that. All right. Is everybody ready? Let's do it. Step 1, Part A, building lists. Note, for every list we go through here, plan to make lists that include the CIDs, or company IDs of each publisher in each group. These CIDs will be used to create the groups once you've got all your lists set. It's critically important. To get started with segmenting by performance, go to your reports area's performance page and run reporting by publisher, setting the filters to monthly trends and the date range to the last 3 months. We'll give you a monthly by publisher table of performance results for the last 3 months. Make sure you've got all your columns selected with this button here, and then download it in Excel to check out the data. From there, you could use pivot tables to identify your top performers, low performers, and publishers with just clicks. You can, of course, do this with more than 3 months of data, but this is a good place to start. On identifying low performers, there's some light dispute over whether or not including these is worth it, since they aren't actually inactive publishers. But in my experience, there are telltale signs in the numbers on their site and on their site to know more performance is ripe for activating. First, they've got a good conversion rate. This means that the clicks that they do send you, a strong percentage of shoppers complete the sale or lead, especially if they're driving at least 50 clicks per month to be a big enough sample size. This tells me they've got quality customers for your brand and their audience, and there's likely lots more where they came from. How can you be sure? Take a look at their network earnings rank and EPC averages. The rank lets you know how they rank across all of our publishers in driving commissions last month, and 3-month and 7-day EPC tell you the average commissions per 100 clicks they've been earning in the long term and short term, respectively. If they're only driving you a low level of performance but have high earnings ranking and EPCs, you could be looking at a sleeping giant. For inactive publishers, you won't see them in performance reports, as they're not performing at all. So to incorporate them, we're going to have to cover that on the next slide, which is step 1B, building lists not tied to performance tiers using the publishers area. So let's go to that now. To identify non-performance details, switch to the publishers area's Manage by Status page. Here you can use filters to pull up unique lists of publishers. Make sure you've got status set to My Publishers, to only see joined ones, and to have program terms set to all active to get your publishers in front of you. Clicking on a name of a publisher will bring up their details lightbox, and in the profile section, you'll see their description, promotional methods, and more. Click through the links on the website section to check out their main sites as well, sorted by network performance. This is the part of your work which can get a little time consuming. But again, this is how you can effectively understand and communicate with your partners intelligently. I recommend downloading the list in Excel and making notes as you go along for anything unique and interesting you learn, especially when it comes to content publishers who may require that personal touch. Another reason to download it is to match the list against your performance reporting that we just walked through. By removing duplicate CIDs, you'll now have a complete list of publishers in your program, and you won't be leaving off anyone who didn't have any performance. All right, that's the first half of the group step. Second half is taking those lists and building your groups and adding those lists to the groups. This slide has a lot of steps on it, so we're going to walk through it very slowly, and you know, let me know if you have questions at the end. So now that you've found all the publishers you need to activate, you've divided them up into groups determined by a mix of performance, promotional method, and vertical, head to the Publishers Groups page to build each group. Click Create Publisher Group and name it appropriately. Think of the details you'd want to see in the name years after this and would still help you identify it. Save the group when it's all set and start in your next one. With all your groups set, let's go back to your publishers lists, which include their CIDs, to add them to each group. You're going to have these CSV lists, and the first thing you're going to do is delete all the other data from those lists just so you have a column of CIDs in column A in Excel. Then copy and paste special into B1, pasting as values and transpose. This will flip your CIDs sideways. You can delete column A now, leaving only your sideways list of CIDs, and then save as a CSV file, or comma-separated values, and close. You'll open this list in Notepad or another text editor to get your comma-separated lists of CIDs. This is the list you're going to use to build your groups. So to do that, go to your Publishers search page, and with the My Publishers button selected and CID chosen from the drop-down, you can add up to 1,000 CIDs to each group. Repeat for each of your groups. We're done with part one. Remember, I know this is a lot of steps here, but the value of pulling that reporting, examining publishers' profiles, and adding these lists into groups is huge. By doing this, not only can you reach out to and provide offers to groups differently, but you're establishing groups that will provide customized reporting and insights for everything this campaign brings in terms of results. Super exciting. Okay, let's move on to the offer step. You've thought deeply about how you can best offer value to each of your publishers' groups, and for some of them, you would like to offer commissions bonuses for reaching specific performance goals. You can accomplish this by using performance incentives, or PIs. These are automated commission increases or bonuses, which you can build right into the program term. Let's quickly walk through how to accomplish this. I'm going to keep this at a high level, as you can look all of this up in our support center for much more detail. So to do this, to create a term with performance incentives, go to Account, Program Terms, and click the Clone button for your default program term. Find the action you want to add your incentives to. In the Performance Incentives section, select the type of incentive you want to add to your action. You can choose from total sale amount, total commissions, or number of actions. This is the goal that you want them to reach. Tracking starts on the first of the calendar month and resets each month. Once you select the type, select your reward by options. You can choose between increasing the commission rate and paying a one-time bonus. Note, if you set a rate increase, it will be for the entire calendar month's sales, not just those above the threshold, so keep that in mind. After you select the incentive and reward types, click Create Incentive Tier to save it. You can create multiple tiers. For example, you can set an increase for one goal and a higher increase for an even higher goal. You can mix and match incentive and reward types in a single PI structure and program term. Remember, not all publishers will need an incentive. Keeping your inactive or new publishers without one is a good best practice, but these are the steps that you should follow for the rest of them. Now, alternatively, you may want to track performance yourself or set up your own goals and timelines in a way that PIs don't accommodate, and thus need to process bonuses manually. That's fine. You can do this easily on the Reports Transaction page using the Create Commission button above your results area at the bottom. Fill out the fields, save, and you're done. As a quick refresher for the fields you'll encounter, let's take a look at some definitions. First is website ID, also known as PID. This is a unique identifier of a publisher's website. A publisher may have multiple PIDs, one for each website in their account, or maybe even more. You can pick the one for their main site, assuming they haven't specified otherwise to you. Now is Order ID, or OID. This is normally the unique identifier supplied by you, such as a confirmation number. For a bonus, you won't have one because you're creating this from scratch. So create an order ID that will make sense even years later, incorporating the publisher's name, some kind of date, and a reference to the campaign is a good idea, such as CJ May 2017 activation bonus. Include only alphanumeric characters and spaces within this field to avoid any potential errors. And lastly is a unique field you won't really see too often, which is reference date. This becomes your transaction's event date. So you may want to set it to the last date of your campaign's month, or ending month if it's more than 1 month long, as opposed to today's date, which is likely going to be after the fact and not necessarily tied to this bonus. Now part 2 of the offer step is how to create special offers or promotional code links for one or more of your groups. To build links that are only visible to one group at a time, you're going to go to your Links Manage page. You'll create a new link by clicking the plus sign at the top and choosing your link type. Follow the steps you need to cover things like the link's name, ad copy, creative file, destination URL, and so on. But before you save it, adjust the publisher group field to the appropriate group you're targeting. You can only select one group per link. So if you need to create multiple links to reach multiple groups, that's how you would go and do it. Your groups are all set. Your links and program terms are built and ready. Let's move this thing to step 3, connect and roll it out. Now, your publishers are in specific groups. You can now use the Email Campaigns Builder to send targeted communications to each of them. So to do that, head to Mail, Email Campaigns page, and click Create New Campaign. Name your campaign and email tied to it. You can group all of your activation campaign emails into a group this way. And go to step 2. At the top, click the radio button in the My Groups row and select the group or groups you want to send it to. You can select multiple by holding Control as you click them. Follow the rest of the steps of the wizard to produce your email, and always send yourself a test first to make sure it looks good. Part 2, the connect step, timing and replacing. With your groups made, links and program terms on deck, communications drafted, you're ready to roll. So let's talk about how to roll it out. I like a 2 to 3 month campaign length. This is long enough that your publishers really have time to ramp up their performance and get you slotted into their key placements and methods, and also is short enough there's urgency to get moving quickly to earn those incentives. I also recommend sending out your emails and pushing out your program term offers at the same time, so your publishers have all the information they need in one helpful package. Now to roll out PIs, if you're using them, you're going to be replacing these publishers' current program terms. So to do so, you're going to go to the Manage by Status page in the Publishers area, use the Additional Filter Options button to choose your group, hit Filter to get your list, and then click Replace to pull up the program term offering window. You'll be asked to specify a replace date which is a minimum of 7 days out. I recommend a 14-day lead time here, as coupling that with a communication gives your publishers 2 solid weeks to plan and prepare for the beginning of the campaign. For example, if you'd like to run your campaign from May to July, I recommend pushing the replacement program terms and sending your communications around April 16th to start on May 1st. You can use our temporary with fixed replace date and end dates type of replacement to set both the May 1st replace date and July 31st rollback dates simultaneously. And again, you push this replacement on April 16th to make that all happen. There you have it. We've just walked through executing an activation campaign, and you made it through in one piece. I've added a 4th step here, which isn't part of building or rolling out the campaign, but is just as important, which is tracking and reporting on your progress. Make sure to regularly run reports to keep track of performance and determine any need for follow-up with any publishers that spike up. It may make sense for you to move publishers into different groups and offer them better incentives. If they work their way up from inactive to low performing to your mid-tier and so on, or even out of the activation campaign entirely if they move up to their potential quickly. That's the meat and potatoes of it. I hope walking through our real-world example makes this feel a whole lot more grounded in your day-to-day. bonus, if that was a little too much to take in all at once, we're going to be sharing this deck through the GoToMeeting platform with you lucky webinar watchers right after the call, which ought to keep you on the right track and remind you of all key details. Woohoo! Okay, now it's time to answer the questions that are likely burning on your mind right now. Although we've gone over the fact that activation is something our most successful advertisers incorporate into their strategies, you might still think this isn't meant for you. Let's walk through some of the more common concerns that I hear about every day. First, I hear there's no budget for incentives. Often, marketing budgets are among the tightest managed of an organization, and asking for additional spend to cover bonuses or really anything above your standard or expected per customer costs is simply out of the question. Hey, I've been there too, believe me. But this is why we went over the value of non-monetary incentives too. You've got a ton to offer as a program, even just in your up-to-date links and offers and product information. This alone can be all you need to remind an inactive publisher of the value they saw when they first joined the program, or even recently before they dropped off. Pursuing activation without incentives is still worth the effort and sees returns. Next, I hear, I don't have time to do this. I need to focus only on my top tier. They're my most valuable relationships. It's hard to believe sometimes that those publishers with zeros across all their metrics could ever become one of your top performers. But consider how constantly and rapidly this affiliate work changes. Mergers and acquisitions, new platforms and technology, and don't even get me started on the shifting tastes of the consumer. Keeping strong relationships with your top publishers is of course an important effort, but taking a limited amount of time every quarter or twice a year to set up and roll out new activation efforts keeps you on the radar of diamonds in the rough. Next I hear, I don't have time, I need to focus on recruitment. Well, recruitment is a very important part of affiliate marketing. We could do an entire other webinar on recruitment, especially if you're a newer program or a channel for your brand. But consider, based on the criteria we've been talking through, how many activation pubs were once recruits, even recently? Just because you've recruited them doesn't mean they'll start performing. So running these campaigns ensures everyone's on board, whether they're a new recruit rookie or a longtime veteran of yours. And I always hear, I don't have time to get to know and activate so many publishers. Well, get this, you don't have to. As very important part of the group step is keeping an eye out for publishers who simply aren't a good fit for you. You can determine this by looking for low network earnings rankings and EPC averages, by checking out their sites and promotional methods to see if they even make sense for your brand. Things may have changed over time. The website that they may have been running when they first joined may have changed since now. And if it doesn't make sense, set them to expire and focus on your smaller potential-driven list. If they get expired and feel they should be active again to promote you, they can always reach out to your inbox to get that conversation started. And last, but certainly not least, do I really have to do this? Of course not. No, you don't have to. If you're content with only the publishers you have performing now at the level at which they're performing, then there's nothing forcing you to add activation to your strategy. But chances are, your numbers could be better, and you want growth, or your boss wants growth. And if you're interested in growing your program in the best way possible, and in a way that our most successful advertisers do every day, you have to do this. You do. It's worth every minute you spend on it. And personally, I find it's one of the most rewarding parts of affiliate marketing management. In closing, before we turn it over to your questions, thank you so much for your time today. Before we go, I'll say that it's always a good time to get started on this. So don't feel any need to wait for a specific seasonality or sales seasons. You can always derive value from connecting with your publishers. And if you're looking for a little extra support as you follow the strategies we went over today, always lean on CJ for your questions and best practices. That's why we're here. Your best bets for activation campaigns and help with them are always going to be your support center. The recording of this webinar, which will be available after the call, and the post-call deliverable of the deck, which I mentioned. It actually won't be post-call. We're going to send it right through the software software, so stay tuned for that. And even some excellent and recent CJ blog posts on diversifying your publisher base, which ties very closely to the efforts we've covered today. All right, I'm all done. Hit me with your best shot. Take it away, Ryan.
Great job, Bryan. Thank you. I think. Hello, can I borrow your headphones? Yeah, no, I hear you now. You can hear me now. All right, excellent. Thanks, everyone, and thank you, Bryan. Wow, that was great. That was some heavy stuff. So I'm going to give folks here a few minutes to continue to send us in questions. You want to catch your breath real quick? You good? I'm good. Have a sip of water there, because you're going to need to get ready here. We got some stumpers. You think you can handle it? Bring it on.
Bring it on.
All right, excellent. Okay. First question. Do you have to build groups to run an activation campaign?
That
is a great question. Probably the golden question. No.
You don't.
You don't.
You can totally reach out to everybody with the same exact
method,
the same
exact offer, the same exact opportunity to get things started. But you're simply just not going to see the returns. You'll be spinning your wheels. You may have some results for sure, but you're really gambling.
You're assuming that everyone's
the same, and
as much as we know about publishers and how much time we spend on these relationships,
we know that's just not the case.
Every relationship's different. Everybody's looking for the value that's most important
to them and valuable to them.
So
groups and grouping and the time that you take to do that is critical. I can't stress that enough. It's really paramount to making this happen effectively.
All right, Bryan. Thanks for that. Okay, next one here. Can I over-communicate with publishers? So I guess as they're sending too much communication, at what point do you think you might be overwhelming publishers?
It's definitely something that that I hear about as a concern, because yeah, you don't want to flood people's inboxes and send too much. I would say you can. And that's why it's really important to focus on quality over quantity. You don't want to be hitting publishers every single week or multiple times per week about the activation campaign. Again, that's why we spend a lot of time in the connect step to talk about planning those communications and timing them and what exactly they should say. Connecting every 2 weeks or appropriate cadences leading up to the campaign, maybe a check-in halfway through the campaign just so they remember it's still going on, and certainly one at the end if you do have some rewards to give out and some relationships that you've been building. Highly recommend, all that planning is really going to go into avoiding over-communicating with publishers. It's very important, but it can be done, so that's why you want to plan that carefully.
Excellent. Thanks, Bryan. So we're seeing actually kind of a theme of questions coming in here, so I'm going to kind of pose it in a general kind of way here for you.
Sure.
Let's talk about incentives, monetary or otherwise. What do you think works? Or can you provide some examples that you've seen in the past of both monetary offers and then non-monetary offers?
Absolutely. That's a great question. One of the things that I think, just to speak to monetary first, and then we'll get to non-monetary, one of the things that's really critical and can make a big difference with monetary incentives is using those promotional method groups to target what you offer. As I mentioned briefly earlier, for instance, if you have a group of loyalty publishers, giving an increased commission rate, something that works for you obviously from a profitability standpoint, but brings in real value, and it is a short-term increase. This is a reward to thank them for the added efforts. Maybe they put in new search investment. Maybe they're driving more with Google Display Network to their site or social, whatever they're doing to drive traffic to their own site is costing them more money than it normally does. And they're doing it just to wake up the audience. So So that's why a commission rate would be really valuable to loyalty publishers. It allows them to increase their cash back, increase their points rate. So that's what we're talking about there. When we're talking about content publishers, I mentioned flat bonuses because as you may be aware, content publishers, they drive an incredible amount of value for a brand, but when folks are reading, they have a lot to consider. So they might not convert right in the moment. They might just be digesting, they'll read the blog article, they'll start thinking about it, they might come back later. Because of this, they can see fewer conversions and more readership, and that's why a flat bonus can mean more, because it really means they don't need to hope and pray that lots and lots and lots of their readers buy something because they wrote a really great article. The key is that they're getting the word out about the products and offers, and that reward is more, it feels safer, it feels more guaranteed if it's a flat bonus. So that's why I mentioned that. So in terms of how much or things like that, it is kind of hard to say. It's definitely going to be specific to your program. You want to think about how extensive this campaign is, obviously, and what are the goals that you're willing to reward them. And just think about your customers that you're driving. If your goal for them is to drive you 5 new customers, 5 sales, which effectively is 5 new customers for your brand, what's the value of those 5 customers to you? And how could you offer that back to the publisher as a reward? In terms of non-monetary incentives, I guess it's kind of a misnomer in that it's not so much about incentives, it's really just about a reminder. Publishers join a lot of advertisers' programs. They're trying to get connected with every great brand that they can, and often, especially in the coupon and deal space or loyalty space, it's really a whole shopping mall on many of these publishers' experiences of every possible category they can cover. They want to have every possible substitute and every possible product. So they forget. They're busy. They don't remember all the things you have to offer that maybe they knew right when they joined the program, but now it could be years down the road. And so emails just talking about the fact that you have a product catalog, mentioning maybe how often it's updated, how many products you have in it, how well optimized it is, if there's certain product categories that you really focus on or are doing really well, if you have hot products that are doing really great. That's all such important information that unless you tell them regularly, they're not going to notice. They're not going to remember naturally because they're just so busy. So that's really the key to non-monetary incentives, as I call it, is informing your publishers and reminding them of the value that they understood when they joined your program in the first place. I hope that was helpful.
I think so. Thanks, Bryan. I'm going to take just 1 second here. It's getting closer to the top of the hour for folks, and I know some people are going to start jumping off for lunch and for their next meetings. We said we were going to send out this presentation via the software, so I'm going to upload that. You should see in your go to webinar widget, there should be a tab called Handouts. So I'm going to drop, there are 3 PDF documents that I'm going to drop into that. And then before you leave the webinar, you should be able to just, I haven't done it yet, I'm going to do this during the next question that Bryan, while he's answering it, you should be able to just grab those documents from the handout section and just drag and drop them onto your desktop or into a folder. So I'm going to do that now, and then as we kind of handle this next question here. So look for that coming down the pipe here. And Bryan, for you, let's see here. What metrics should we use to determine steady, low, and inactive affiliates / publishers?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So what you really want to do here, I find, is take a look at any other marketing channels you can benchmark against. Really think about what do you define as a successful publisher. And what I mean by that is look at metrics that aren't necessarily about bulk volume unless that is something that you need. If you need a successful affiliate to be driving you 10 new customers a month, well, there you go. That's where you can draw the line. At 10 or more, I don't need to worry about these. 10 or less, okay, there's some work to do. We could work on those publishers. And then in terms of some other metrics that are non-volume related, look at conversion rate. If your traffic, including other channels, if your conversion rate is typically 8%, and you find that you have publishers that are below 5%, that's definitely room for some opportunity. Maybe close to 8% is someone you don't need to worry about. So I would definitely look at other channels and talk internally and think about what are those benchmarks of a good marketing partner, or even just a channel in general, can start guiding you down the right path. And that's how I would say sort of draw the line between inactive and active. And you can get more granular too, for sure. You know, a big part of activation, and often is honestly one of the bigger reasons why people do activation campaigns, is to grow and diversify the top tier of publishers in your program. I'm sure we've all heard the 80-20 rule. You get 80% of your value from 20% of your publishers. This can certainly happen, but as any good marketing book will tell you, you really want to keep diversifying that risk. You want to make sure you're spreading it across and having as many contributors as you can. So I say that because you may want to have a mid-tier group as well. You may have your low performers, but you may have publishers, if they're doing okay, you just want to do more with them and get more exposure and grow your share of voice and get them into that upper echelon, that 80-20, that 20% that's driving the 80% of value. You want to get them included in that tier. So I would say if you want to get a little more specific with your performance tiers, look at creating a top tier, a mid tier, and a low tier. But in general, if you've never done this before, all you may need to do is just focus on that low tier to really get things moving.
All right, thanks, Bryan. Everyone, those files should be available again in the handout section. I've got some people telling me that they are seeing those now, so that should be good. I hope you find all of these useful. Again, you'll find the full presentation that Bryan just went through as well as one of those handouts.
And I did actually just want to add a footnote to that. In the deck of my presentation, the slide where I mentioned Jessica Woodbury's webinar, the title of the webinar there, like everything you wanted to know about content publishers but were afraid to ask, I think it is, that is the link to her webinars, to the recording of her webinar. So if you're looking for a link to that, go to that slide of the PDF, and that's where you're going to find that link to that.
Thank you for that. Okay, kind of again, speaking to kind of general theory on activation campaigns, speak to us a bit about frequency, right? Some people are asking, great, I want to do this. Do I do this every day? No, I don't think anyone's being quite that aggressive yet. But what do you think? What kind of take a stab at this? Is this quarterly? Is it semi-annually? What do you think?
If you can pull off doing this every day, I bow down to your affiliate prowess, because I can't handle that kind of operational ability. But no, to be more reasonable, and honestly, it's kind of hand in hand with the over-communicating with publishers, because again, the whole purpose of an activation campaign is to re-engage publishers and cut through the noise. If you're throwing out activation campaigns every month, then they're not going to, they don't even need to perform, because they know there's going to be another campaign next month. So you don't want to make them so often that it doesn't actually drive attention and urgency and notice. But at the same time, you don't want to have them years apart. Frankly, I would just start with one a year. I really would just have it at a good time of the year that you, honestly, maybe even a low point of the year that you would like to wake some publishers up. For instance, I've worked with some tax brands. Tax has such a specific seasonality, and it's January to April, and that's it. And so you might say, well, would they run their activation campaign in January? No, because January is already too late. If you start the campaign in January, publishers won't be active until the end of the season, maybe halfway through the season if it's a really fast ramp up, and you don't want to miss out on that time. So when I worked with those programs, we would run activation campaigns in the fall. Nothing's happening in the fall. There's literally nothing you could do with your taxes during back to school season, but it was a great time to start building relationships with publishers and connecting with them and talking to them about what they could do, and then they would kind of set it forward. So the tracking period would still be, January and February, but the publishers knew about it with lots of notice, and they could really plan out the campaign. So I would consider one a year is definitely not too too seldom. That's an okay cadence. 2 a year if you maybe change up how you're targeting groups as you go. So if you don't always hit the same groups in the same exact way, you could probably pull off 2 or 3 a year. But I would start with 1 a year. That's definitely often enough to be, doing the proper kind of health check on your program without being too often.
Great, thanks, Bryan. We're going to get out of here on this question here, and just before I do that, just want to go ahead and put in another plug for our support center that you can find online when you're in the CJAM. If you click on the little question mark up in the top navigation bar, hopefully you can find what you're looking for there that can get you going. We've done a lot within the last 6 months, rewriting, recrafting articles there. So we hope that you're finding that useful. And please try to use that every chance that you get. And you'll also be able to start support tickets through the support center as well. So that's a great resource. So just again, kind of a final overview kind of question, or more general question here. Since you've done so many of these, Bryan, talk to us about what we should expect. Right? If you can speak, I know every program's different, but people are getting excited here. What realistically do you think, in kind of general kind of terms, should people expect?
Absolutely. I know my enthusiasm may make me seem like a salesperson, but I am not. I am not just trying to sugarcoat it and make it sound amazing. I want to be real with you. Everything that we talked about so far is of course accurate, but to be realistic about what to expect, this isn't a flash sale. This isn't a one-day deal. This isn't a limited time offer. It's not meant to spike performance. It's not meant to have a wave of activation and all of a sudden all of your publishers are active in a week. It's not going to happen. Publishers need time to plan. Their audiences need to get used to seeing your offers. They need to get used to trusting that they want to shop through that website for your brand. They may just be really used to shopping with you through another website or directly, but they also shop there too, or maybe they've never heard of your brand before and they want to start, getting used to it and understanding your deals. And so I say that what to expect. Obviously, it's going to be mixed. You're going to have some publishers that become active sooner than others, but basically what I would give yourself, to be fair, is really that 2 to 3 month time frame to see the thing really come to fruition. And again, that's why I said a little earlier, I really like a 2 to 3 month campaign. 1 month, you might have some publishers really catch on, especially if a really powerful deal and they do just a great job of promoting it. But 2 months really gives them some longevity. For bloggers, it gives them a chance to really create some compelling content. And in that 3rd month, that's when you're really going to see performance starting to refine and improve, and you really get a sense of what exactly you've accomplished with the group. So I give it that 2 to 3 month time frame, to be fair.
All right. Thanks again, Bryan, for all your help with this. I think this was helpful for our group here. And thank you all for attending. There are a number of questions here that we're just, with it coming up to the top of the hour, we're just not going to make it to. We will try to reach out to those of you directly as quickly as we can. We had quite a number of people on this webinar, which we're excited about. So we'll try to get in touch with you with follow-ups. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We will have another webinar coming up in Q2, if not one, maybe 2 of those. And Bryan, we'd love to have you back again. Thanks so much for all your help. Thanks for attending, everyone. Have a great day, a great rest of the week. Cheers. Thank you.